Hello, fine folk. Coming at you today with this flow. I played outside on July 4th and was reading parts of this new book that I purchased while garage sailing. The woman that sold it to me read it 10 times. The title is One is the Sun, and the author is Patricia Nell Warren. Anyway, she said she felt like I was meant to have the book, and I quite agree. So here's the following excerpts. When it comes to philosophy, added the old man, the person who lives in the square mind of today will have a hard time imagining what the world is like for people who see all life as circles. Many of our scholars today have this problem constantly. When they study the so-called primitive peoples, or the peoples of ancient times, they believe that they understand the circle mind, but they underestimate that their own thinking. Yet they underestimate that their own thinking is square, so they translate everything through the square. Do you understand? The white-skinned people of North America were often called skunks for some of the Western tribes. This was because they had heard so many whites call each other by the derisive name of polecat. It was a skunk belief that exactly 1,857 years had passed since the birth of their religion. But the many religious wars and the many political revisions of history books had warped the calendar so badly that the 9th month of the skunk year had the old Roman name of 7. Who could trust such a calendar? To the learned people among the brown-skinned tribes, it was perhaps 3,500 years since our ancestors had seen the birth of a new planet in the skies. They reckoned their time from that birth. But they too could not be exactly sure of the date because the brown skin's own world had been so wounded by a great destruction of knowledge. Because of these different points of view, our vast and beautiful region of the North American continent was seen very differently by the skunks and by the tribes. The two people even gave differing names to this region, names that revealed much of the history and the thinking of those peoples. Among some native peoples, the region was known as the Wyoming. The name could be translated as land where the mother goddess is loved. Other peoples called it the Wakanada or the Manitoba. These too are names for Mother Goddess. At one time, the vast radius of the Wyoming reached clear from the southwest desert north to the Canadian Muskeg, and from the Sierra Nevada summits east to the Mississippi. By 1857, however, because of white-skinned incursions, it had shrunk to a small, ragged disk in the area known today as Montana. However, to the many thousands of white-skinned immigrants, the same identical reach of Earth was the Golden West. How was it possible for human beings to draw their lives from the same space of windswept prairies, sunny mountains, shadowed canyons, and clean rivers, and yet see it with such radical differences of mind? Yet there was a huge paradox in the profound difference between skunk thinking and Wyoming thinking. Many skunks and tribals people did have one belief in common, a belief that many of them still have, in fact. The old woman paused and added, "The belief is this, that women are evil." As the skunks, said the old man, inspected the image that they had created on their large pieces of crackling plant stuff called maps, they saw the land west of the Mississippi as an enemy, the wilderness, an unknown and terrifying land. They also saw it as a land that was undiscovered, untrodden by humans, because most considered the native peoples to be animals. The skunk attitudes towards this land revealed their terrible ignorance also. Few knew anything about the migrants and traders who touched America before Columbus. The skunk image of the Golden West lay between two invisible lines that they called boundaries, drawing these across the earth in their imaginations. To the north, running across vast prairies, was the boundary of a political image that they called Canada. To the south, Meandering along a river they called the Rio Grande was the boundary of another political image called Mexico. The skunk people liked squares and straight lines. To the human who studies life deeply, the circle comes before the square. In geometry, only the circle makes it possible to draw a perfect square. And the circle is always female, a symbol of the moon cycle of the woman, of the womb of the woman, that births all humans into life. Round is also the earth, who births all life and all the countless cycles of that life. Round is her orbit about the sun. In ancient times, the knowledge that can be extracted from the marriage of circle with square, mathematics, writing, astronomy, medicine, geography, and many others. And many others was taught and carried through the Western world by the great minds of the round temples. But in more recent times, skunk religion and science had brutally severed its understanding of the square, which is male, from the circle, which is female. In their minds, these peoples gave a lonely and sterile supremacy to the square. And so to the believers among the skunks, life was symbolized only by the square, whether it was a square meal or the four-square gospel. In the dictionary and the thesaurus, the word square is a synonym for goodness, justice, balance, straightforwardness, stable tradition. It is a paradox that while most skunks threw away the circle from their philosophy, they could not avoid depending on it in their geometry and their engineering. This revealed how split they were in their minds. Not surprisingly, skunk history reveals that a time came when anyone who taught about the goodness of the circle was persecuted. They were executed in public in the cruelest way, or they were driven underground and silenced. Hideous wars were fought, millions of women killed, when finally the population that had been terrorized into square thinking, the round temple schools, universities of knowledge about life, stood empty and shattered. The believers among skunk historians made no attempt to edit this shameful time out of their history books. In fact, they were proud of it. This strange belief that women are evil had appeared in ancient times all over the world. Is it not strange to hate the very beings who birth all humans into life? The question of why, how, where, and when humans began to despise their mothers, sisters, wives, and daughters is a huge one. We will not follow that trail in this journey song, but in every place that the belief appeared, the wealthy saw the economic profit in using women to educate whole populations into slavery.